people, or wait for some people to kind of get on and stuff, and I'll share the link and all that jazz and get this going and stuff. Um, but anywho, uh, anywho, gonna be a pretty fun video, as they say. Anywho, gonna be a pretty fun video. Oh gosh, I better. Okay, just repeating itself to me. He's like, oh gosh, darn, I better get off of that. uh, and then share that. But should have quite a few people today, hopefully, and gonna cover some topics about the Battle of New Orleans and Palmito Ranch and uh, Arkansas Post and Jenkins Ferry. So we definitely have a bunch of fun stuff going on today, uh, as far as discussion topics and sorts. But uh, but anywho, this is Jeffrey here, Mr. Jeff. Got as our special guest today, very highly regarded here. It's always nice to have him around and stuff, and have him join in because very informative, are very quite informative here. Uh, we had him on one of our previous live streams, and it was quite fun and exciting, and always enjoyable to have him join us and sorts. But anyways, still waiting for a few more people to come on. Hopefully, um, but oh gosh, I'm still getting all my notes together right here in my little notepad and stuff, and always quite the ordeal
Yep.
for me.
I'm at my shop right now.
Oh yeah, that's your woodworking shop and stuff that you have been telling us about and sorts. I know that's pretty exciting. I would love to hear more about it at some point in the future.
Yeah, we'll do a video one day. I got a mess right now. I'm going through tools for getting stuff for Camden. So
Oh yeah, because I know that Camden's going to be pretty fun and exciting, at least for us and everyone else that goes. It's definitely a pretty big event and quite the excitement, at least in my opinion and stuff. Um, a lot of great people there, and uh, definitely some great battles there and stuff. I've gone to that particular event on several occasions, in which I would probably like to say since I spectated in 2019, and I think in 2022, pretty sure, and then so that was quite the experience for me, especially as a full scale battle. One of the first full scale battles I've done uh, since getting involved in the hobby. I know there's others that have been involved for quite the time. For definitely for a while. For me, it's kind of been I like to say about the better part of 5 6 years and all that sorts. But uh, at least for me, so it's been quite fun, uh, pretty educational, at least for me. But anyways, well, I guess let's get started at our own pace, or we'll kind of go as it play it out as it goes, and have some fun and uh, have at it. And if there's any questions in the comments, it's always nice to hear them. For those that are just jumping on right now, we're covering some uh, several topics today involving the Battle of New Orleans and Palmito Ranch and Arkansas Post and Jenkins Ferry. with an addition to other topics as well. Uh, just for kind of talking shop, I guess, as they say, for lack of better words, and all kinds
That'll
of
be accurate.
and having some fun. So if there's any questions, we'll do what we can to answer them for you. Um, but anyways, I guess I'll let you. Well, I guess we'll start off with the Battle of New Orleans, I guess, and that was a battle that occurred in Louisiana on January 8th of 1815. It was part of the Battle of the War of 1812, kind of in a sense. So it was quite the start to it, though. So, but I guess I'll let you lead us on this one if you'd like, or I can. Totally up to you.
Now, as you said, the Battle of New Orleans happened after the final Treaty of Ghent was signed. That was signed in late December, just before Christmas, I believe, of 1814. And word had not traveled to the parties involved at that point yet that the war had finally ended for that one.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of 1840, or then so down in New Orleans, the British were on the offensive to try to take the Mississippi River because that controlled everything west of the Appalachians as far as supplies and goods getting into them. There was about 15,000 troops that had arrived in Louisiana that fall, I believe it was, if I
Yeah.
recall correctly.
Okay.
Uh, and they arrived on about 50 ships, I believe. So the British outnumbered the Americans by a large margin on that one. Uh, they were under the command of an Admiral Cochrane, if I'm saying that right, an Alexander, I believe, Cochrane. Um, no, Admiral, that would have been Navy. I was the guy in charge of the ships that came, that the troops all in. I'm sorry. So, but then they came in and fought. Andrew Jackson was down there with his troops. He commanded a group of mostly state militia, some regulars. They had some Choctaw Indians, and I believe a couple of pirates. I don't know much about the pirates that were involved in that, but I believe I saw a reference to some pirates on that one. Um, they were ordered to protect New Orleans, so they had gone down the Notchet. I
Yeah,
can't say
pretty
it.
sure. And I know that as far as the pirates go, I know that's quite the. There's a lot of discussion on that as well. As you mentioned, as to the context of it. Interestingly enough, I know that it was led by gosh, I forgot the name of the guy's name. I don't know if it was. I think it was Blackbeard. Interestingly enough, and they actually used some of the cannons and stuff, and several of the crew as well. To kind of help man that as well. Interestingly enough, from my understanding, um, which I found to be pretty interesting, and there was some deal with that as well, to my understanding, kind of as a, I mean, of course, that's one of those things where that particular part of it, I'm not 100% familiar with it, as I can definitely admit to that uh, as well. But I know that there was something of that sort involving that. So, um, in that regard, and to my, and how it. Now I know that there was like, I'd like to say there was like 5,700 uh, troops involved on the American side, and I think that on the opposing side, wasn't there like close to 8,000, if I'm not wrong, if I read correctly,
Oh,
something if I
but
approximately.
it was somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there though. So I found that it was definitely quite quite the quite the engagement, in my opinion. Of course, there was obviously bigger engagements, and since then and before then, to some extent. Um, but I always found that kind of interesting, especially with I don't know if you're familiar with the song, the Battle of New Orleans and stuff.
Yep,
There's
I've heard it.
that whole song with the Battle of New Orleans and stuff. It always I forgot who sing. There's a few people that sing it though, kind of on a side topic, I guess, with that as well. Kind of going on a slight rabbit hole. Um, but anywho, I'm trying to go through my notes right here. It's like I know that last night I took a few notes and stuff. Um, Let me see. And I guess that the battle did occur before sunrise on January 8th. I know that there was always quite the thing on that, as on the British left, Keen's infantry penetrates an unfinished redoubt. Um, and then uh, I always found that part pretty interesting. Um, but I guess kind of one of the question that I've always kind of wanted to go that I've always kind of figured was you know it's kind of crazy how that whole thing, as you mentioned earlier, kind of going off of that as the how the battle occurred after the treaty was actually signed. I guess it kind of gets you to appreciate how the things have improved since then as far as communication and all, and how it's so fast now, but back then it was so slow. Um, oh,
Yeah, it took time for news to travel.
yeah, that's the guy. The pirate's name is Jean Lafitte. Um, that's who the pirate was. Um, Kind of a smuggler and all that sorts. Because I guess that Lafitte and his brothers ran a pretty lucrative smuggling operation in Louisiana before the war actually had officially started. And had, of course, one of the several things they had done was, uh, you know, the purchase slave trade in the West Indies and sold them for profit in New Orleans. Of course, the federal bans and all that stuff on that. And what is it? And then I guess that the brothers also worked for, uh, I guess now Columbia. Um, Interestingly enough, just a little bit of history on Jean Lafitte and his brother and stuff, kind of in a sense, kind of as a side topic. I just found that pretty interesting when I was going through that last night, um, to an extent. But um, I guess the battle itself, um, you know, was quite the, um, what was it? Of the 3,000 men under Gibbs and Keene, Um, 2,000 actually became casualties in less than 30 minutes. Um,
Yeah, it was a lopsided victory. It was poorly planned by the British. Uh, they earlier in the day they sent up their cannons up the river to try to place them in positions to fire upon the Americans, and they tried floating them across the river, but ended up floating back down the river because the currents are too strong.
yeah, that's what I was kind of reading as well, and found that pretty interesting though, because it kind of seemed like it was quite the at least that part was a pretty big bloodbath in a sense.
Yeah,
Um,
the British never got their cannons there. The Americans had 20 or 30 cannons in place on both sides of the area. There was 15 cannons on the one side, and on the eastern flank, I think it was, and on the west end, they had reports say it's like 3 to 16 cannons pointing that way. Then when the British arrived, they didn't have their cannons there. So all the infantrymen were marching toward a point. They had seen a spot that there was guys dressed in dirty shirts and uniforms. They didn't have uniforms. They were, I think they call them the dirty shirts or something, if I recall correctly. So they thought they were the untrained guys there to go towards, and they actually ended up being uh, ex-military that just weren't in uniforms. So they aimed to try to take that area in the readout area from them. And then as they got closer, they had a moat there, which was 10 to 15 feet wide, and they had nowhere to go. The British neglected to get the ladders and other equipment there to climb the readout, so they all marched up there and had no way to cross the moat. So it's just a firing squad from the Americans chewing them down.
Yeah, that's kind of what I gathered as well. It was definitely quite the catastrophic defeat. Um, and all that sorts. And I guess it kind of went back and kind of bit him. And all that stuff. Unfortunately, though, and but
Yeah,
as
the general that led the attack and stuff, he ended up dying in that.
yeah, there was something about that though that I had read as well. Um, but I guess that I guess that with that being said, I guess that Jackson was uh for the Americans kind of hailed him as a hero. Um, as you can imagine with that, ended up kind of going towards the presidency and for the next at that point, and in the long term, I guess, kind of ended up going for it at one point afterwards. But you know,
And the
heck,
seventh president from.
yeah, I I can't. That's the one part that I'm also kind of lacking on too. And it's like I know quite a few of the presidents though. It's like, oh gosh, it's like which one was he again? I forget. And I guess it kind of, it's kind of one of those things where I've always tried to achieve knowing as much as I can, but then it's like as soon as I know or learn that, I forget something totally different.
Yep.
It's like, well, I'll pick
The
that up
perk, the
again.
perk of getting older.
Yeah, that too, though, and just trying to remember it all, but it's like it gets harder and harder the more that I remember, or the more that I know and try to learn and stuff, though. Um, but anywho, that was kind of some of the interesting things that I kind of found to be um interesting, at least as far as the pirates go and stuff. But I guess kind of on a side note with that too is the British offered to pay Lafitte pretty heftily, for his help in fighting the Americans at New Orleans. But I don't know. Um, but then I guess made a proposal to the governor of Louisiana. He would help the Americans defeat the British in exchange for a pardon from all smuggling charges against, him and stuff. So I found that, to be quite the interesting part there. Um, But oh well, I guess there's quite a bit on that though, and found that pretty fascinating in my opinion. But I guess it's kind of one of those famous battles and stuff. But I always found that to be quite interesting in that regard. Um, but yeah, well, I mean, I know I don't know about you, but I know this was definitely quite the ordeal. It's always one of those topics that you always enjoy learning about. But anywho, I mean, was there any particular part that you found interesting about that battle and all that stuff? Something that kind of sticks out to you in the end and
Uh,
all.
just that just that they make an attempt at a redoubt without cannon backup, softening the fort that they had built, and not a way to cross the moat was something else that you'd even attempt at something like that unprepared.
Yeah,
If they would have waited just a few hours, it could have been a different victory. It wouldn't have changed the war. But the British could have at least claimed that they had the final battle instead.
Yeah, that is true though. It's I always find that part pretty interesting too. It's you hear about some of these famous generals that have kind of played the whole cat and mouse kind of ordeal, kind of going off of that as well. I mean, not necessarily saying it was this situation, but I know that you always hear about situations to where had they waited, a few hours or a day, for either more reinforcements or more time to, properly prepare, how things could have been drastically different, and it's, I guess it kind of, it's always having, those smart minds and, in charge, and how much it could definitely make the difference and the kind of make or break kind of moment there, and I guess it was kind of one of those situations, where unfortunately, the British didn't come out on top on this, and stuff, and it was like, wow, that's unfortunate for them, but but it's, I guess it kind of goes to show, sometimes sometimes being patient or whatever can sometimes, or at least postponing it a little bit, will kind of help sometimes.
Yeah, they wanted to press the attack and didn't want the Americans. Sometimes you just don't want the other side to be able to get reinforcements, so you push your attack and fail miserably, which was what happened in this case.
Yeah, it's, that's definitely the case, and sometimes you're even forced into those situations as well, for whatever reason, no matter if if it is for reinforcements or prevent the other side from getting those said reinforcements or supplies or whatever, but doesn't always quite work out that way though. So, but I guess it's kind of one of those topics, one of those things about it, that I find interesting, and I'm sure you do too, and having to kind of plan it out, in such a way to make it work. But well, we all know how it turned out, unfortunately, though. So, but but anywho, I guess that kind of one of those things, though. So I guess if you have anything more to add, I guess we can. But I guess if you want to move on to Palmetto Ranch, up to you. You feel like
Yeah, we can move on unless anybody that's watching has any questions for Battle of New Orleans.
yep, don't have any questions as of yet, but I know that I'm just waiting for that. I'm just waiting for one of those comments to come up, like, oh, kind of like the last time, all those great comments we sometimes get. It's like, oh, yeah, it's those questions that make my day. I'm just waiting for it to happen. And it's I guess it's kind of the spice of life and kind of gets you to appreciate it. And that they take time out of their day to join in, I guess, join in on the fun. but but anyways, I guess the next topic that we have is um Palmetto Ranch, the Battle of Palmetto Ranch, which happened in Cameron County, Texas, from May 12th to the 13th of 1865. I guess it's considered to be the final battle in the Civil War.
Depends
Considered to
it
be,
depends on the historian that you
yeah,
listen to on that.
yeah, depending on who you listen to on that, I guess it's kind of varying situations on that, and um, I guess it's kind of one of those things, kind of like the whole treaties, this and that. You don't end up finding out the final tally on it, and
Well,
um,
in this case, both parties involved in the conflict were aware of the surrender of Lee. Uh, One reason that some historians discounted the final battle was because the army had already uh, surrendered, I believe, or something for this one. But the Confederates down there in Texas decided they were not going to give up just yet. So technically, they were to or two historians, they were considered ex-Confederate soldiers. So that's why they'll determine or that they say that they weren't. It's not actually against Confederate and Union. It was against Union and ex-Confederate rebels. So it wasn't official Confederate soldiers. Was their was their thinking on that one?
Yeah, that's the crazy part about it, though. Is there's just so much about it. It's like, well, technicalities, and
Yeah,
I
that was
guess
that's a technicality for sure.
and it's kind of gets you wondering. It's like, well, that's interesting, and then I kind of gets you to kind of leaves you up to kind of sit there and kind of ponder it for a while, and really just it's one of those things, I guess, and I guess it's kind of considered a Confederate victory after fighting for most of the 12th and 13th. And I guess how it ended up ending, per se, is I guess Theodore Barrett had withdrew, his worn out command a few miles from, I guess, Palmito Ranch along the Grand Rio or the Rio Grande River. Um, And I guess at around 4 p.m., a large Confederate cavalry force had commanded, I guess that was commanded by Colonel John S. Rip Ford, I guess, from what I understood,
Yeah,
as he had approached. And as the Federals had formed a battle line, and of course, the Southern forces had hammered the Union line with artillery, and, Barrett ordered a retreat into the last ending the last supposed um, battle there, um, allegedly, um, as they all say. Um, Interestingly enough, but I guess it's kind of there's a lot to kind of consider with that, and but oh well.
I found it interesting that both cavalry units on both sides were both of the Second Texas.
Yeah.
The Union was the Second U.S. Cavalry of Texas, and the Second Texas Confederate Cavalry was. So they were both the same designation, just on different sides.
Yeah, I always found that interesting too. It's, I guess in a sense, it's kind of like a snake fighting itself, and biting its.
That's why he said brother against brother.
Yeah,
You got some of that in some of the Maryland units also.
yeah, it's. I always found that pretty interesting though, how that all worked out and stuff, and I guess it's you look at other places in similar situations. It's like, well, that didn't happen with this area, but it happened in Texas. But so it's like, why did it happen there versus here, but not in other places though? But I guess it's just kind of an alliance thing, and in the end and stuff. Um, but I always found that part pretty fascinating. But and then what was it? I guess that the approximate total was about 500 Union and 300 Confederate uh, were
Yeah,
involved.
it was a very small engagement.
Yeah, the total engagement, I guess, is the total amount. Um, and kind of gone. John Ford had gone up against Theodore Barrett at that point, um, and I guess to my understanding is that Barrett's forces had marched all night, um, to the outskirts of White Ranch, and after trying to conceal his men in a thicket, beyond the ranch, the column was spotted by the Confederates on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande River. Of course, losing the element of surprise, you know, but I guess nevertheless, Branson moved into White's Ranch and found no Confederate force. But either way, a lot of technicalities in that too, and always kind of found that interesting though. But um, then who was it? I know that um, but I guess Forstman's by the early morning hours. Blah blah blah. Gosh, I need to stop writing as many notes as I have. It's getting too confusing. But anywho, I always found that pretty uh pretty interesting though, and I guess in context, um um I guess uh I guess despite Barrett knowing about Robert E. Lee's surrender, like you had mentioned, this battle, the column still moved towards White and Palmito ranches where they'd hoped to destroy a sizable Confederate camp. I always found that pretty interesting, though, and kind of, similar to your thinking as well, and, with them fully knowing what was going on. But,
Yeah,
oh,
and Jefferson Davis was also captured 2 days prior, also.
yeah, it was definitely quite the interesting situation. Kind of gets you wondering on this particular subject as well. At least for me, it's like, well, why did they continue to pursue, and certain things were kind of playing out, though. I guess even at that point, yeah, Robert E. Lee technically had surrendered, though, but I guess it wasn't necessarily a full, surrender. I guess is one way that you could interpret it to where.
That his army
Yeah,
left several other armies. You had the Army of Virginia, which was Lee, and then you had the Western Theater guys. I can't remember them all. It's been a few years since I've looked at Civil War,
yeah.
but
I always found that pretty interesting too. It's how I know that obviously with Robert E. Lee surrendering, and then obviously it wasn't a full surrender as one as we all know. Um, it just took time to kind of happen, I guess, from how it seemed and stuff to really get it all leveled out and stuff though, and um, and how it ended up turning out and stuff. So, um, but anywho, um, but
and they were not the down there for the Battle of Palmetto Hill. They were also not the last Confederates to surrender either. That came out another month or so later in late June. An Indian general, it was Brigadier General Chief Stanwati.
yeah, there was
Was the final, he
too.
was the final one to final Confederate to surrender, and his forces, I think they were Cherokee.
Yeah, I found, I heard something about that though, and unfortunately, that was one of the many things that I haven't gotten around to reading a lot about those. It's like but I have heard about that to that extent, and always found little topics or like big topics like that interesting. And how they all came, how things like that came to be, and how they ended up turning out and stuff. And I know for me. Uh, that was definitely quite the topic as to and kind of gets you well, I guess it kind of gets you wondering like why that happened and how the Cherokee got involved in the conflict as well, which kind of definitely begs that question, and at least for me it kind of gets you wondering how that all came about, and and you know
Well, the Indians knew they couldn't trust the federal government, so they hoped to at least have better relations with the Confederate government.
yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it and stuff, and go about it though. So it kind of adds to the adds to the situation though, and and it's like, wow, that's interesting. I guess it's what you know. But anyways, but what are some interesting points you found interesting in this whole thing? I guess to kind of wrap it up for this particular, for Palmetto Ranch, what are some things that you found, as a final say in all this? What do you think as a final thing is your opinion.
I don't know. It was small engagement. I didn't keep there.
I think we lost you there for a second, though. Um,
My,
yep, I think we lost you there for a second there. My bad. but but anywho, I know it's definitely one of those particular um situations with it and all that sorts. Um, but anywho, well, I guess it's one of those things, I guess, right?
yeah.
But nope, nope, nope. You're all good. You're all good. Yep, you're all good. You're there.
Do something. I do that. I'm gonna try to get rid of that now.
Oh, yep. I know sometimes the reception can get a little weird. Um, and
Oh, I turned something. I pushed some button. Continue on.
yep. Well,
I'll continue here.
all's good.
As
All's
we-
well. I guess moving on to the next. Well, we don't have any questions on Palmetto Ranch, so I guess we'll move on to the next topic. It's always nice to hear from people if you have questions. So if you have any, don't be afraid to reach out and let us know in the comments. Um, but I guess here, the next topic is the Battle of Arkansas Post. Happened in Arkansas on January 9th through the 11th of 1863. It's also known as the Battle of Fort Hinman, which was a combined land river assault by Union forces on the Confederate fort uh, Hinman, which of course loomed over a bend in the Arkansas River um, near Arkansas Post. And I guess as the Union advanced down the Mississippi River, past the mouth of the Arkansas, and then the presence of Fort Hinman outflanked the Federal forward positions. But then, of course, the Confederate ships had used the fort as a base to launch some raids on northern shipping, culminating the embarrassing capture of the Blue Wing, I guess, which was a supply ship uh, laden with munitions meant for General William T. Sherman's command. Um, so I guess that was pretty interesting. Um, Quite the deal with that. Um, but I guess to intensify the problem throughout the final months of 1862, rumors abandoned or abound that a powerful new ironclad was being built at Little Rock. So I guess there was a boat being built, or a ship as they call it. Uh, found that part pretty interesting though, and um, but anywho, I guess trying to get all my notes together with this one. Um, but anywho, I guess my understanding, trying to get all the gosh darn. So I guess that there was uh about 30,000 Union. soldiers and about 5,000 Confederate. Um, and then I guess you could probably say that the Confederates were pretty overwhelmed at that point with 4,900 losses or casualties on that in that regard. So it seemed to be a pretty big impact against the Confederates at that point.
Yeah, that was 1/3 to 1/4 of the troops that were in Arkansas at that time. It was a big blow to them in that area.
Yeah, so it definitely seemed to be quite the ordeal with that. A pretty big a pretty big engagement in that regard as far as how many were on one side versus the other and stuff. And I guess there wasn't much of a chance, you know, well, for the other side and stuff. I guess as they say. Um, I guess what was it? Uh, what was it? I guess that I guess McClernand was under orders from Grant to push down the Mississippi and open an assault on the river fortress of Vicksburg, an attack on Fort Hinman was not part of of course, was not part of the purview at that time. I guess nonetheless, he grew pretty enthusiastic about the idea, and after Sherman recommended such a move, allocated about 10,000 to an expedition and requesting a gunboat support from Fleet Commander David Porter. Um, this Porter, however, had loathed McClernand and refused to provide support unless Sherman led the infantry himself, or the infantry assault himself. And I guess additionally, Porter had insisted on personal command of the support for flotilla. Um, Interesting one on that part, but but I guess there ain't much to really say about that in that regard. So, but well, what can you say? Seemed to be a pretty one-sided one on this one.
Yeah, the Union forces drastically outdone the Confederate forces. Um, the Union troops brought up 40 field pieces against the fort, and the Confederates only had, I don't know, 10 or 15 guns total or something like that. And then, along with the 40 field pieces the Union had, they also had the gunboat and 3 ironclads. So they had dozens of cannon at their disposal on those ships. Some of them were 9-inch Dahlgrens, 32 pounders. They just didn't have a chance up
Yeah,
against those.
but I mean, obviously really wasn't much of a chance in any regard on that one. So it's like, well, I guess it is what it is. So, um, but I guess there ain't much comment on mine in that. It's like, well, yeah, you kind of set yourself up for that one. But anywho, um, well, I guess we don't have much to say, but anywho, well, I guess any final comments on it or not really?
I don't have anything on that one.
Uh, and I'm kind
That
of
did that did allow forces from there to go on to, I believe it was Vicksburg, and that
yeah,
or
it was one of those things, it's not really much on my end to say either, other than that. You pretty much covered that. Um, but I guess in any regard, I guess we can probably move on to uh, Jenkins Ferry, Battle of Jenkins Ferry. Um, this is one of those few situations in which it's like, well, I'm not sure how much I know about this one. Um, this is one of the battles I don't know much about. Um, but I guess it happened in the spring of um, 1864, um,
Oh,
maybe, um, fought
oh,
off back by the Confederate.
all right, hold on here. Let me check back with you. My wife's hunting me down.
What?
Let me check back with you. That my wife's hunting me down here for something.
Yep, no worries, all good.
I'll sign off and come back.
Yep, cool beans.
All right.
But in any regard, I know that um, unable fought off the attack. So I guess to kind of continue where we're at, Jeff will be right back short momentarily. Um, so I guess some of the reading that I have on this particular subject was that in the spring of 1864, three Civil War battles took place in the South Central Arkansas that were part of the Union Army's Red River campaign. So if you all have any comments or input on this particular battle, definitely chime in on that. So yes, Arkansas's three state historic parks that commemorate these battles: Poison Springs Battleground State Park, Marks Mills Battleground State Park, and Jenkins Ferry Battleground State Park are part of the Red River Campaign National Historic Landmark. I guess here at Jenkins Ferry on April 29th and 30th, Union troops fought off and attacked by the Confederates and using an inflatable pontoon bridge, uh, crossed the flooded Saline River and retreated to Little Rock. I guess the land where the Civil War battle took place was settled by Thomas Jenkins, who started the ferry in 1815, and it was run by his sons William and DeKalb until the Civil War um, started in 1861. Um, and I guess on 1864 of April 26th of 1864, the day after the battle at the Marks Mills and under the cover of darkness, um, I guess General Frederick Steele and his men and what equipment they had left had crossed the Ouachita River at Camden on a pontoon bridge. Interesting. And I guess that's interesting though. Um, and I guess Steele had gone to great lengths to convince the Confederate scouts his troops spent the night inside the safety of the town. I guess it was mid morning before the rebels realized they had been tricked. I guess the Confederates' only hope of catching the fast fleeing Federal troops was at the rain swollen Saline River at Jenkins Ferry, some 50 miles north. But anyway, I always found this to be an interesting, admittingly so, I don't know very much about this battle, but I know that it was definitely something that kind of stood out a little bit. Um, but I guess it was a bloody battle, from my understanding, because I guess that the South had lost nearly 1,000 soldiers, in the North only seven, nearly 700. But Steele's army managed to cross the river and continued retreating to Little Rock. Um, but uh, but I guess if you go to Jenkins Ferry Battleground State Park, um, yes, there's some interpretive exhibits that are there, and um, and I would assume that there's quite a bit to that particular one. Um, you'll probably get a good bit out of that particular site. Um, so if you ever have the chance, definitely go there and check it out. if you all can. Um, but anywho, well, I guess that's that particular battle. Still kind of waiting on Jet to come back if he's able. If not, we'll we'll definitely figure something out. He's definitely a wealth of knowledge, and by the way, he does make some darn good canteens. Um, so he does quite a bit with that. Let me look up um that while we're waiting on him to come back. I know that he's there's a lot of great stuff with that and stuff. Um, I know that he was really busy with that for a while, but took a break, and he's just starting to kind of get back up and going with it and get back into it, which I found pretty interesting. Um, so if you ever have the chance or if you see him around, uh, definitely definitely check it out. Um, but anywho, uh, well, in other news, um, that's pretty much the ordeal with that battle. So if you all have any more questions about anything that we've covered so far, definitely speak up and write them down in the comments. We're always looking to have you let us know what you think and what your thoughts are and stuff. Um, but uh, anyone have any questions? Let us know. Sorry for moving you all around a little bit. Or if there's any other topics that you find of interest involving American history, let us know. Uh, Definitely looking to possibly talk about them and stuff. Just reading through some notes. Don't mind me. Um, but how open am I, or how open am I to learn the real history? Well, I'm definitely open to learning real history on anything. I mean, obviously, I guess it depends what you mean by real history. Um, I mean, I know there's a, um, I guess with that being said, I know there's a lot of discussion on what's considered real history and versus fake history. Um, not to dispute anything that anyone says or what I say or what anyone else says. I know it's kind of one of those things. I guess to kind of go off of that topic there, um, you know, I know that I personally was not at any of these battles that we've discussed today, um, as I'm sure quite a few of us aren't or weren't either. Um, but I know there was a lot of written information and stuff, and I'm always looking to kind of get that written information and learn that information and stuff. Would definitely be willing to learn, um, more and more about uh, that particular history, as learn as much about it as I can. So if you have any input on it, definitely let us know. Um, I know it's kind of one of those things. So if you have a different perspective, or if you have information that I haven't seen, which is always great, I mean, because I'm always up for finding information, out that maybe I hadn't read before. Um, so 'cause I know that oftentimes certain people have access to information or have been able to find information that I haven't been able to see. So I guess it kind of falls under one of those particular topics in which, um, you know, well, like I guess it's all. I guess it's kind of one of those things where ultimately it kind of boils down to, you know, what have you been able to find versus what I've been able to find, and maybe there's some, depending on, I guess, kind of how I look at it is if there's multiple sources that are pointing in one direction, something about it might be true, but maybe the details, the nitty gritty stuff might be slightly different. But I guess as long as the overall picture is pointing in the right direction, why not? But yeah, as far as like, am I open to learn the new, open to learn, or open to learn the real history? I guess I am open to learning real history, um, and stuff, depending on what sources you have. Um, primary sources versus you know secondary, third, fourth, fifth sources. Um, I always try to base whatever I say or whatever I try to I always try to use primary sources as often as I can, as they say. So, um, but it's one of those things. So, um, but anywho, um, I guess uh, I guess there might be some connectivity issues as far as getting Jeff back. Maybe I'm not 100% sure. Um, he might be able to come back at some point. But I guess with that being said, I guess we can always come back to Jerry or Jenkins Ferry battleground. But I guess for the time being, we can always kind of go off of our bonus topic, which we were, I guess the bonus topic was, um, talking about Florida history and whatever, as well as other um, American related battles and events. So if there's a battle or an event that occurred in America, we're more than willing to talk about it and maybe discuss it. So definitely mention it in the comments if you can. Otherwise, we'll kind of wait for Jeff to come back if he's able. Um, or we can continue. Um, or wait for him to come back if he can. But I guess we can talk about any kind of American related. Um, yep. Um, yep. Um, hold that thought, everyone. But sorry about that. I guess we're waiting on Jeff to come back. I think he's able to come back, but I guess he's having some possible connectivity issues, possibly. Um, uh, from what it seems. Um, hoping he's able to make it back. Um, I had to resend the link to him to join. Hopefully he's able to make it. Uh, hoping. He's definitely a pretty big wealth of knowledge. I always enjoy having conversations with him. And talking with him. Uh, um, yep. Well, I guess that there's some. I guess we're having some connectivity issues. No worries, Jeff. We'll get you. I guess we'll. I guess the link must have something wrong with the link. I guess. Um, but I guess we'll figure something out for a different time. Um, But anywho, well, I guess to kind of end, I guess with the um, Jenkins Ferry. I know that I gave a little bit of information earlier, but oh, yep, yep. Hopefully, I think that Jeff is able to get back on now. He's back. He's blessed us again with his presence. Uh, all good. Um, but I guess we were, uh, kind of
What I missed?
but kind of hit or miss with that. I guess that reception. Sometimes the connection can always be a little iffy. Um, but I guess I know that I gave a little bit about Jenkins Ferry. I kind of, although I'm not an expert on the topic, I did try to go on, on reading some of the reading that I have that I used. But I guess if you have any thoughts on um, the Battle of Jenkins Ferry, I know that it was um, quite the quite the battle, but I guess
Yeah,
if
that one I didn't have much knowledge on.
yeah, this one I was kind of lacking a little bit of knowledge myself on. At least I was, um, but I know that it was definitely quite. It's kind of one of those topics where it's like, well, I just haven't gotten around to reading much about it. Um, I mean, I do know some Civil War history, but I wish I could say I was an expert, but unfortunately, I'm not. Um, but but I guess that, as I mentioned earlier, by the end of the day, I guess South had lost about 1,000 soldiers, whereas the North of the Union had kind of only lost 700 men at that point. But I guess Steele's army managed to cross the river and continue retreating to Little Rock and stuff. So, but I'm not sure what information you may have. I know that I'm not proficient on this topic, so I don't know. You may know a little bit more than me,
Neither
but
on this one.
yeah. Well, I guess that makes two of us. It's like, well, we'll see, and all that stuff. Um, but I know that if anyone else has any information on it, as I mentioned, it's always nice to hear everyone's thoughts about it in the comments. Um, but I guess it's one of those things. Um, so I guess we'll kind of sideline our thoughts on this particular, um, battle. Um, but I guess if anyone has any thoughts on it, definitely say it in the comments. Otherwise, we'll kind of have a open discussion for as long as Jeff is willing, and go from there. Um, but anywho, um, I guess do you have anything you want to include or add to kind of wrap up these particular topics we've mentioned or that we've talked about so far to this point, or you have any thoughts or closing statements?
Good. Really good, I think, at the moment.
Okay, okay. Well, not a problem. Well, I guess we can um, go
Okay.
on to the bonus topic if you'd like. Which I've kind of I always try to have this be as open ended in a sense as possible, while having some very basic guidelines. Um, I guess to kind of put that in words. Is there any other American related battles or events that you uh, feel that you're pretty passionate about, or I know that
Uh,
like anything related directly or indirectly related. I know that you have a lot of expertise on other topics as well.
I wasn't prepared for anything.
But one of course,
For American. One day. for some other that I'm more into.
Oh yeah, well, all good. No worries about that. I know that we'll definitely have to.
Since we had covered some Civil War, let's see if I can get him in here.
Oh yeah.
There's my original.
Oh, those are always the good ones. There, that's definitely quite the
This,
cool
this, one,
thing and stuff.
this one's a 64 Springfield here. This one's a Bridesburg 63. And then a tower and a French.
Oh, okay. Well, that's definitely quite the ordeal there and stuff. As far as the musket collection and stuff. Um, but I guess Big House 1988 has uh well, yeah, those are some pretty nice lead throwers you have there on the wall, as they say. Um, oh yeah. Um, but anywho, well, I guess with that being said, um, uh, well, I guess if I personally am going to stay on for a little while longer. If you'd like to stick around, you're more than welcome to. If not, no big deal. I know that I was kind of thinking to kind of go as long as anyone else was wanting to talk, or or you or myself, or if there was any other questions growing in the comments, great. Um,
All right. Okay.
uh,
Cleaned up back here, and I'll have to show you the molding plane collection.
oh yeah, absolutely. Whatever's great. And it's always nice to see
Settle.
some new stuff. Yep. I think I lost you there for a second. My apologies.
Yeah, that's my connection.
Ah, it's all good. No worries. Um, but I know that it's one of those things. Sometimes the reception has kind of been weird on my end too, though lately. I don't know if it's a server issue or I know that I'm not the most technologically advanced. I'm a little behind on the times with keeping up to date with all that sorts. I'm still stuck in who knows what decade I'm in, uh, figuratively and literally. but but I know that we'll definitely have to plan another live video in the future as in regards to some other things as well, because I know that you're pretty well rounded in a lot of topics and stuff, and I know that you have lots of cool things to talk about and stuff. So we'll have to definitely reconvene at some point, um, and get some more live videos going and stuff. Um, I know for me, it's I've I'm well, I guess it's kind of one of those things to where I have such a vast, well, I guess it's a vast knowledge, kind of like a timeline, of things though. But it's kind of like an overview, and it's the small little nitty gritty details. It's like, well, I'm a little iffy on those, but I definitely can cover several topics. But you might have more detail on the details than I do with several of those things.
It depends on what topic you're discussing.
Oh yeah, so we'll definitely have to reconvene at some point. Um, but as I mentioned, if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. If not, no big deal. We can
All
definitely
right.
go from there, or you can always join later if we cross a topic that you want to join in on us with, and we'll go from there.
You don't have to listen to me messing around here.
No worries. We'll all keep going for a little while longer. Um, I guess I'm going to turn it into a marathon. I guess, um, and all that stuff. I always love talking about all this cool stuff. Um, At least it's definitely one of those topics. I definitely enjoyed learning new things and stuff. Um, but if you want, come back later. If not, no big deal. Or just stick around in the comments if you want. We'll go from there.
Okay, I'll see you in what, 2 weeks
Yep, yep. See you in a
down there.
yep. See you in a couple of weeks at Camden. It'll. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I have plans to do a tiny bit of cooking too, though, with you and stuff, because I know that I sometimes get tired of eating sandwiches, and I always try to cook whenever I can. That sorts. But anywho, well, I'll see you at Camden, and we'll go from there. Then, okay?
Okay.
Yep, yep. Talk to you soon, Jeff. Yep, yep. You too. But so I guess to get back with Big House, 1988, the Gula Wars. I think that I'm reading it correctly. I admit I'm not proficient, or I'm not proficient on that particular topic, but I can certainly look it up. Um, maybe I know it as something else. Maybe. Um, uh, but as long as it is, uh, um, oh yes, also known as the Seminole Wars. Um, the Gula Wars. Um, I just might. Um, that's that's an interesting um, topic that I'm not familiar um, with. So I'm going to be honest with you. I always try to. I try. I try to stray away from things that I'm unsure of. I know that the Gulags who escaped from slavery, who joined, also known as the Gulag Wars, also known as the Seminole Wars. Am I on the particular topic that you're referring to? If not, let me know. If I'm kind of on the right track. Big House, 1988. If I'm not on the right track, let me know. Well, I guess regardless, let me know. I want to make sure that I'm touching upon. Uh, um, um, okay, okay. To be honest with you, I'm not familiar with this particular part um, of this topic. Um, so it's not that I'm trying to stray away from it. I'm just unsure of it. Um, it's going to have to be a topic that I am going to have to look more into before I um, go proceed further with it. I do see some sources on the. I do see some articles on it. There's the Gula Society. Um, I know that it would definitely be yeah, as you mentioned, it would definitely be a great topic or a good read for a later time. It'd definitely be something that I could certainly um, and I guess pending how my reading goes, it could very well lead to a possible video because I know that I'm definitely familiar with the Seminole Wars and the Seminole Indians, um, and I have heard something, some whispers from some friends and stuff, and some very very basic information on this topic, but this was such a long time ago, and admittingly so, it's kind of a topic that I really wasn't familiar with to begin with. Um, so we do have a Facebook group called Our Living History. It's a private group. Um, so if you want to join that group, um, by all means, I encourage you to do so. We do a lot of posting in there. and I definitely love some of your input. And maybe we could, collaborate at a later time on this particular subject, and maybe it could be something that we could probably discuss and go from there if that's something that you're willing to do. Um, as I said, I mean, I'm definitely willing to talk about any topic that's American history related. Well, that's what I try to kind of gear everything towards is American history. Um, at least I try to, and make it, directly or indirectly. I know that the gentleman that I just had on here, Jeff, I know that he's full of information. He does a lot of, he does some reenacting as well. But he also does some reenacting with some units based out of Puerto Rico, which I find really fascinating. Um, and I'm hoping to kind of get more information from him in that regard at a later time because I know that's quite the topic for me. I'm always kind of wanting to, learn more. And I know that, especially with Puerto Rico being a territory, a U.S. territory, and also considering it's so close to the continental or like to the U.S. as well. I know there's you know, some direct and indirect um, things related to the two areas, the Americas and Puerto Rico. So there's definitely some collaborating and some kind of involving some related information and stuff. Things that are kind of related to that particular matter. So I'm hoping that we can hopefully find a topic that we can kind of go over that kind of shares something um, at a later time. But anywho, um, I guess kind of as our uh, default, um, kind of going on from uh, our our also our script as well. If you all have another topic that you all want to talk about that's related to American history, would love to hear about it. Um, you know, um, or we can talk about Florida. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Jeff Yeager is in the comments. We'll put a good program together for San Juan. Definitely looking forward to that. That'll be pretty cool. We'd love to hear more about that and your plans when we're at Camden and stuff, because I know that would be pretty fascinating to hear more about. Um, because I personally think that there's definitely a lot of history that kind of, uh, in Puerto Rico that kind of relates to, American history or to the 13 colonies, or I guess the original and kind of moving forwards, that or some history that kind of relates between the two. Um, I'm sure there's quite a bit out there. Um, and I would love to be able to do some collaborations with that. Um, but anywho, I guess to kind of go into some Florida history, I do have some very, very, very great news for those that are familiar with one of my video plans or my video plans with Florida history is I recently um, uh, for the past several months I'd been in contact with the West Nassau Museum of History based out of Callahan, Florida. There's also a train depot there too. Um, yeah, absolutely. Definitely overlaps with Florida history, especially with it being close to it as well, Jeff. And I think that there could be quite a bit with what we can discuss in that matter too, that relates to the two areas and stuff. Um, but anyways, some good news on the Battle of Alligator Bridge, which is kind of what I was referring to in Callahan, Florida, with the West, because I've been collaborating with the West Nassau Museum of History um, and also with John Hendricks out of that museum too. He was They were kind enough to. I know that when I first initially started researching this topic, the Battle of Alligator Bridge, I know that they were kind enough to get me started. And of course, I had reached out to the museum and was asking them all kinds of questions and said, "Hey, I'm looking to, do a video in November." I think that this was a good April, May, maybe even earlier than that. Um, you know, Talking with them about this matter, and they said, "Yeah, we'll get you. We have all kinds of information." And whenever they didn't have certain information, they were certainly willing to at least help me research and point me in the right direction. So they were a huge help. Uh, and again, this is the West Nassau Museum of History, and there's a train depot there too. So if you're ever in the area of northern Florida, it's a little bit north of Jacksonville, maybe north and west of Jacksonville. It's maybe 30 minutes south of south of the border, I guess. Um, and all that sorts. But they were great with getting me information, and I guess to kind of move on from there was that they have also further agreed to, in a couple of weeks when I go down to Florida, I'm going to be filming the video on November 20th, the Battle of Alligator Bridge. I'll be filming that particular video. So we'll be uh, we'll be filming, not only filming the video on site of the battle itself, but they have also agreed to be in the video as well, and all that sorts as kind of as a collaborator on that video. Um, and with John Hendricks, he's going to be in the video as well. A huge help. And I'm actually looking at kind of looking over the information on the battle itself or the map. I'm looking at the map as well as the information too. I'm looking uh, at the area that the battle took place, and if you look, of course, I'll include the maps that I have in the video. But me kind of looking at it right now, I wish that I could kind of share it. But looking at it now, the map that I have of the particular area, it's on the King's Road here. Um, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Big House, 1988. I certainly try. I know I know that sometimes I don't always get it right, but I always try my best to do so, to get it right. Sometimes it's a struggle, but and definitely subscribe if you can. Tell all your friends if you can. If you're able to subscribe, please do so. It's always a big help. To get great people to kind of join in on us and join in on our mission to share great information and great videos. I personally always try to you know uh, you know do my videos in a way to where I literally go on site to where a lot of these battles took place, or go to historic sites or museums and go to all these cool places and stuff, and or at least places that I think are cool, with the hopes that others find them cool too. Um, but anyways, kind of back to the Alligator Bridge topic. Um, Looking at the map here, it shows the Kings Road in Florida. For those that are familiar with it, um, it's a road that kind of goes through the particular area. And at one point, this is like there's a bridge here, and judging by the location, it's in a narrow area. There's like swampland on the left and the right of this particular area, right by this Sunoco gas station, where there's this bridge that goes over this wooded or swampy area, this river or whatever, and that's where we're suspecting that the actual battle itself happened. Um, so there's documentation and some evidence of it happening in that particular area, which is what I find pretty fascinating. Um, so you know, basing it off of this particular area. But anyways, the great news about this particular topic is that the museum is partnering up with me to be in the video as well. Because initially they were just a great group of people that wanted to share the information and share. Um, kind of like me, they wanted to share information and just pass it along to other people. So it was definitely a great experience to be able to have, as far as, um, or it's a great feeling to be able to have some people that are just as passionate as I am to share history and stuff, join in and stuff. People like Jeff and in certain museums like the Western Nassau Museum of History join in and and be passionate about sharing it. So I always find that find that great that they were interested in joining in on the video. So if you're ever in Callahan, Florida, go check out the West Nassau Museum of History. Um, they're definitely a great wealth of information, and a great source. There's also a train depot there, which I find to be pretty cool. So definitely go check them out. Um, so if you can do that. Now, for those, I don't know if any of you all want to get an overview on the topic. I know that I already have the whole script and stuff played out, written up and stuff, and kind of as an overview I have here too. But if you want to hear one, you're more than welcome to. Um, just let me know in the comments if you want to hear more about it. Otherwise, I can move on to some other good news involving some other videos that I'm hoping to do. As we're kind of getting closer and closer to November, which is when I'm planning on going down to Florida. Um, and I have some other ideas as far as places that I want to go to, that I have planned, and also some updated information too. Um, so that's the other good news, um, is that I have some updated information on other things. Um, uh, so I can always kind of go over those things. Does anyone remember when I went to uh, the ghost town of Kiko, otherwise known as the Kissimmee Island Cattle Company? I don't know if anyone is on here that remembers me doing that particular video a number of years ago, in 2023. Um, that was probably not necessarily my favorite, but I guess in a sense it was. Well, it's toward the top, um, to be honest. But I think that it was more so rewarding than anything because when I had initially, um, I had been doing research on that topic. I'd like to say from January of 2023 until about November of 2023. Well, between the research, well, it wasn't so much the research, but it was also um, well, I probably spent a good 6 months of that doing research, and then the other amount of time was trying to, go through the proper channels of being able to access the area, or like between accessing, or I guess between finding ways to access the area legally, and then of course on top of that, finding where the approximate location of that area was, as well as other things. Getting the day pass for it, um, as well as because you had to apply for a day pass to be able to access the area. Otherwise, you were kind of out of luck, for lack of better words. because there was a combination lock that you had to access, and they regularly changed it. Um, so that was kind of the kind of the thing about it. It's in the River Ranch area, right near the River Ranch area. You're, because you kind of had to go to the River Ranch area and then go down a 12 or 13 mile dirt road once you went through the gate with the lock on it. And then you were going down like a dirt road, um, in which it was kind of like a winding road. So it's not necessarily a road that I would drive your Prius down. I know, I forgot who it was that said they had a Prius. I don't know if it was um, Jeff that had a Prius, or if it was one of my other buddies that commented that they had a Prius, but it was someone that said that they had a Prius. And and when I had said that comment, I said I wouldn't drive your Prius down that road. They chimed in and said, "Yeah, I have a Prius. What are you trying to say? I can't drive down there." He said, "Well, I mean, you can drive anywhere you want, although I wouldn't suggest it." um, so it was kind of one of those things in which I would probably suggest not necessarily driving down that dirt sandy road, without a proper vehicle. Um, so if you're wanting to go to that particular site, I highly suggest it. And again, it's right near River Ranch. If you type in the Kissimmee Island Cattle Company, it's in like Central Florida. For those that are interested, um, so for those that are interested in going there, it's definitely worth the trip if it's something that you're wanting to do. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. Because you're probably wondering why it's literally in the middle of the woods and swamps. And it would probably surprise you how this even got there or was there. Um, but um, it's but anyways, it was actually uh, it was pretty much so pretty much on site there was like literally a saloon, like a few saloons, a bunkhouse, mess hall, a company store, ice house, power plant, homes, schoolhouse, company store, and a few other little odds and ends, and a steamboat landing. Um, but of course, when you go there today, you will literally see none of those things. You're literally going to see um, a, like a big dirt sandy road, and then on top of that, you're also going to only see um, a campground, maybe if that. There's like a few campsites along the way that you can camp at. It's, it's like the further out you get, the more primitive camping it is. So if you're into that kind of thing, by all means, um, you know, uh, so definitely keep that in mind. You're definitely going to want to pack your lunch. But anyway, so this Kissimmee Island Cattle Company site was a meeting place um, for the cattle people. This was like a small ghost town or a town at the time that existed at that time from 1913 till about 1929. Um, and it was kind of a meeting place for all the cattle, for all these cattle drives and all these big cattle farmers and stuff that were going north to, going south. Well, they were going south to north. So they kind of agreed to have this place be the um, kind of a meeting place for the general area. Um, you know, actually, correction, my bad. I guess 2 years off. It's been a few years since I really visited this subject though, but um, 1915 until the 1920s. Um, but I guess the town kind of faded away in the early 30s, as roads were built and other transportation, such as trains and stuff, and um, and other ways of transportation were kind of created. Um, and I do have that video, so you all, if you go to my channel or go to the main page or whatever, or if you type in Kissimmee Island Cattle Company, you'll probably see one of my videos or my video on the topic, which I would highly suggest watching. Um, it's definitely something that you should check out if you can. Um, because it's a great video, and I actually find what appears to be some foundation of a uh, of a of a building of sorts. Um, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're able to, because I do show that in the video. Um, and I think that it's quite enjoyable for those that are interested in the topic. So if you can, great. Um, Definitely worth checking out if you can. So that's the good thing about it. Now, uh, for those that are also wanting to learn more, there's some other topics that we can go over today. Um, who here is familiar with um, the 1715 Spanish fleet? Um, uh, the Treasure Coast in Florida. Who else is familiar with that? Has anyone, uh, before I go crazy on the topic, um, I'd love to be able to go into that if there are people that have interest in the topic. If not, I can always move on to something more uh, appealing to those that are wanting. And if you have any questions, please let us know. If you have any questions on a particular topic, let us know. More than happy to touch on certain, whatever American history related topics or Florida history. I'm really starting to kind of go into the Florida history as well. Not specifically. I mean, I'm not necessarily looking to change the direction of the channel, but I'm not looking to do that. But I'm looking to expand on as much as possible because I know that there's a lot of interest and a lot of. Uh, um, oh yes. Well, the 1717 fleet, I'm not sure of, but I know that the 1715 fleet, there were quite a few ships. I think there was like a total of, I'd like to say maybe between 11 and 13, maybe if I'm not wrong. And I'm almost, uh, I know they've found a few of them, but as far as how many, I'm not 100% sure. But I know that they were able to find a few. Um, as some of the, let me pull up my notes on the 1715 fleet here, because I know that it's quite the topic. Um, it's let me look through it. 1715. Um, yeah, about 11 or 12, about 11 to 12 merchant ships carrying gold, silver, and other valuable items to Spain were sunk due to the hurricane that had hit in that area at that time. So that was pretty much the deal with that. Now there are some museums. If you're ever in Florida and you uh, are interested in learning about that topic, there's some great museums that you can go to. One being, well, there's several museums, especially in Brevard County and the general area. Um, the first museum is the McLarty Museum. The spelling on that one uh, is, let me see if I can find it. It's like McLarty is the spelling for that one. Then there's a second museum in that general area um, called um, the Mel Fisher Museum. So there's two good museums that you can go to. Although my personal favorite, so both of those are great museums in their own right. But my personal favorite is the McLarty Museum, or the McLarty Treasure Museum. And the reasoning is because I guess it's just the ambiance that particular museum offers versus the Mel Fisher Museum. Mel Fisher is one of the people who actually did these research dives um, to find those shipwrecks and sorts. Now, again, this is one of the topics that I did in 2023 in November. So, it was a few years ago when I had really done this particular topic. But anywho, Mel Fisher is one of the people that went out and has done a lot of research on this topic. Um, and as far as how many ships he was able to find and locate, I'm unsure of, but I can say that several of them have been found. Um, uh, but as I mentioned, the McLarty Museum is probably my personal favorite, just because of the simple fact that it's just the ambiance of it. Because not only do they have, uh, not only are they located on the beach, but they're also located on one of the camps, one of the recovery areas that during the 1715 Spanish fleet crash sites, this was one of the recovery areas that they had set up at. So there was literally a well that they had dug for water, to be able to access some water and stuff. So this is literally on one of their camps, which I think, in a sense, kind of adds to the ambiance of it. And as I mentioned, it's on the beach, so it's like, well, how convenient can you get there? And you can literally walk out to the beach from there and kind of start doing your own treasure hunt, if that makes sense. Um, so for those that are into treasure hunting per se, um, by all means, you can certainly do that. Um, I'm not sure of the laws. I know that I've mentioned this in previous videos, but me stating the same thing I'm about to tell you now. I'm unsure. I'm a little iffy on the laws, and I'm not sure how they're supposed to be. But to my understanding, is that um, I mean, obviously you can find the coins and stuff. It's not illegal. You're allowed to go for the coins and look for them. Um, but I'm a little unclear of if it, of how you're supposed to go about selling them. I think you're supposed to sell them to the state, and they'll give you money. I'm not sure how that works, so don't quote me. If you happen to know the law, definitely state it in the comments. Um, so be very careful in how you do all that. If you do decide to go out and look for coins, because I'm not sure how that whole process works. Um, so definitely do some research before you go about it and do it. And the last thing I want is one of you all to go out there and end up in a situation that you can't get out of. Um, so definitely do some research as far as what you're supposed to do. Um, Now, as far as the topic goes, um, Uh, the reports as far as how much I'm kind of going off the tip of my tongue here as far as the information here. The estimates as far as how much they recovered out of those 11 to 12 ships that had crashed. There are estimates of them saying that they recovered about 35 to 80% of the lost treasures and other valuables. But the theory is that they often used a higher number to discourage or to help discourage pirates and other people and stuff from trying to get their own share of said treasure. Um, so those are the estimates. Um, but then, of course, um, I always found that pretty interesting. I guess it's kind of as a deterrent. Uh, they kind of use that higher number. Oh gosh, it's been quite the week. But anyways, uh, I have a video on that topic. So if you type in the 1715, uh, uh, here's the title: the 1715 Spanish Fleet. Uh, Look for the Our Living History video, and you should be able to find one of my videos on the topic. Um, I always find it pretty interesting because because the fact that um, just because of um, there's just so much to it. I guess it's kind of like the whole finding treasure. I guess for lack of better words. Um, I guess me having grown up in Florida, it's kind of a one of those topics for me to where it's like something about it just attracts my attention. Um, uh, so it's one of those things. Now, who on here is familiar with the Intercoastal Waterway, um, also known as the Indian River in Florida? Um, Not just in Florida, but I'm kind of using Florida as a reference. Um, has anyone heard of the Intercoastal Waterway or the Indian River? If you have, let us know in the comments. Um, yep. 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 Jeff. Yep. That may very well be right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how many were found. I know that several of those ships were found. I just couldn't recall, but I guess thank you, Jeff, for finding that answer. Seven of them were found. Um, so there's the answer. uh, Jeff to the rescue. Uh, Jeff to the rescue, as they say. So thank you for saving the day on that one. It's definitely a pretty vast subject. The 1715 Spanish fleet that crashed off of Florida. And for the record, it was a big storm or hurricane that crashed those ships, or that caused. Well, that was the reasoning behind they as to why they crashed. Um, so it's kind of one of those things, um, as to why the cause was. But anyways, as I mentioned, for those that are looking for I'm willing to give you whatever information you want um, on the 17th. Well, for whatever I can tell you, um, as far as the historic stuff, I can certainly do what I can to tell you. I know that Jeff here kind of saved me on some of the more modern information as to how many they currently have found. Um, and I know that Mel Fisher was one of the people that was kind of leading the expeditions on some of the early stuff, and I know that he does some other. Mel Fisher did some other stuff, um, you know, in the Florida Keys as well. Um, So he's definitely pretty well known in the treasure hunting. Um, I hate using that word in a sense because it just sounds kind of more like he's out out for it just for the treasure when it's really the history that he's wanting to find and share with others, like he so kindly did with this particular topic. Um, so it's kind of one of those things to where I. It's not that I don't like the term. It just sounds like it's a little degrading, in the sense because with such a man like himself, he was out to find the history, not so much take the history. He wanted to find the history and share it with others. That's kind of how I look at it, if that makes sense. Um, but anyways, um, it's definitely quite the interesting topic. And as I mentioned, if you ever want to be able to watch a video on the topic, I actually go to um, one of the areas that they've been able to uh, um, one of the areas that they've been able to find some of the gold coins is right off of Sebastian, Florida, like Sebastian, Grant, Melbourne, and Vero Beach area in Florida. They've been able to find gold coins in those particular areas related to the topic, the 1715 Spanish fleet. So it's kind of a point of reference, and that's another thing that kind of adds to the McLarty Museum is that with it being on the beach, it's more relatable to the particular topic because it's literally on the beach, in which on one of the beaches, one of the areas that gold coins are continuously found at. So if you go out there, um, after a storm or a lot of waves or like a wavy day from like the waves out in the water, um, you may be able to find a gold coin, maybe, depending on if you're lucky or not. If you're into that kind of thing, if not, well, I guess not. um, but anywho, as I said, check out the video for that particular topic. It's on the channel. Um, and again, if any of you all have any questions on the topic, by all means, reach out. Leave them in the comments. Would love to be able to answer your question. Um, but I guess to go on to the next topic is the intercoastal waterway well, I'm using Florida as a reference, but the intercoastal waterway, otherwise known to some as the Indian River. It starts in Florida and for the most part goes all the way up to Maine. Um, that sort. So for those that are familiar with it, um, I actually have done a couple of videos on the intercoastal waterway that I have on my channel that you can look at and check out as well, in regards to that matter. So if you're looking for something more, you can definitely go onto my channel, and I can give you a little bit of information now. Is um, uh, um, Personally, a lot of my videos take place, that are involving the intercoastal waterway take place in Brevard County, as well as the counties north and south of there. Um, but there are some islands that are within the intercoastal, like the Spoil Islands, especially in Sebastian, Grant, and Melbourne area. And the reason why there's little islands there is because when they were dredging a channel within the intercoastal for bigger boats to go on or to use, obviously if they didn't dig a channel, a lot of people would be running aground. So they had to dredge a channel for bigger boats to use. so they could be able to, access the area. And the dirt that they had picked up and dredged out, they moved into particular places, and it created islands. So that's why in some areas along the intercoastal waterway, wherever you go, more than likely that's what that's about, is because they had to put the dirt somewhere, and just as a cost efficient way, they just created islands within it. So that was the reasoning behind that particular manner, or like the reasoning behind as to why they did that. Um, so for those that didn't know that, I'm glad I was able to teach you something. But also, um, pretty much, um, an interesting fact is that the waterway goes about 3,000 miles up and down the east coast of the U.S. And just over the, and just over the land over there is the, um, so like pretty much in some areas there's like a little sliver of land. It's like really like pretty much, um, well, some interesting spots along there. I actually grew up near Hillsborough Inlet in South Florida, and would always cross the intercoastal waterway to get to the ocean. So I remember doing that. Um, but anyways, the waterway was used, um, as a route uh, for people or for companies to use to go up and down the coast of Florida or the U.S. to transport goods from one area to another that were along that route. So I hope that was something that I could have taught you. And it was also used by the U.S. military during World War II, as a way to hide from submarines, enemy subs that were along that were out in the water or around the ocean side during the war. Um, so that was something interesting that you could definitely grab from there. Now, now, I guess to kind of move on to the next uh, subject, um, who has heard of the Windover people? Um, the Windover people, or otherwise known as the Bog people, in northern, well, kind of in, you know, just north of Brevard County. Has anyone heard of it? It's an interesting topic. I was able to go to a museum, and I also did a video on the topic as well. And I've yet to do a continuation video on the topic, because I was able to do a video in which I got a private tour of a museum's exhibit involving the topic, to where um, we, uh, to where he showed me around a lot of their findings and just gave me a private tour of the whole thing. He was kind enough to do that. The museum was the Brevard Museum of Natural Science and History in northern Brevard, or just north of Brevard. A great experience, by the way. So if you ever have a chance, go there. Um, Definitely something that I really enjoy doing. Um, Now, here's another um, thing that I was able to find interesting. There's a place called the Benson House that's also in that particular area, um, right along the East Coast, that was owned by the Bensons. I don't know if anyone on here is familiar with that particular topic either. Um, definitely a great, um, definitely a great video that I've also made on that too. Um, uh, so anywho, um, with that being said, does anyone have any questions or anything that they want to talk about or whatever? or any kind of um, anything that they want to mention. Uh, I'm trying to find some other cool things that we could talk about here. Um, who has ever been to the Castillo de San Marcos, the fort in St. Augustine? Has anyone on here ever been to the fort? I know Jeff has. Um, I know he's been there a number of times. I'm pretty sure. I think. Um, but if anyone has been to that particular fort in Florida, the Castillo de San Marcos or the San Marcos, if you've been there, it's definitely a pretty cool place. I don't know if any of you all have been there that are watching, but if you have been there, what were your all's thoughts on the fort? I plan on going there in November. That's the hopes, is I'm going to go there in November and do a video on it, and kind of you know showing you all around a little bit and stuff, and kind of collaborate with some of the people there on the particular topic. So if you've been there, would love to get your all's input. So if you've ever been to the San Marcos in Florida, the Castillo San Marcos, definitely, I would definitely enjoy your all's input and how to go about touring the fort and getting as much out of the visit as possible. I know they do uh, firing demonstrations as far as cannons and stuff, um, but for those that have been there before, would definitely love your input. Um, I'm definitely receptive of getting whatever information you have. Um, Even though I do have some connections, maybe you all have some input on how to do it better um, than what I've been able to find. Um, so if you all have some input, definitely put it in the comments or message me, as I would very much love to be able to get it and make the videos appealing to you all as possible. Um, Now I know that I'm not sure if the King's Road historical um, the King's Road YouTube channel is watching, but if they're watching, I know that I reached out to you within the past week, and I know that you were going to get back with me um, as far as meeting me, possibly meeting me at the Buy Low Plantation on November 20th. Oh yes, yep, Jeff Yeager. Yep, Mr. Jeff. I know that you've been to um, uh, the San Marcos. I know that it was definitely a pretty darn cool fort. Um, Maybe you could message me some input as to how to go about going. As far as like touring the fort, maybe you have some input on how to best do it. Um, and parts of it to see first, and how to kind of or just in general advice on how to see the fort best. Or as far as like walking around the fort and how to go about it, as far as touring it and stuff. I'd love your input on how to do that. Switch your own convenience whenever you're available. Have a few minutes to do it. Just definitely let me know. Message me, um, and stuff. And you can always tell me at your convenience. I know that you're pretty busy. Um, so if you have some input, definitely let me know on how to best tour uh, the San Marcos. That'd be really great because I know that I'm going to be going there in November. Or that's the hopes. As of now, that's the plan as of now, and going there. So if you can fill me in on how to best do it, that'd be great. Um, so just let me know and we'll go from there. But anyways, I don't know if the Kings Road um, historical um, YouTube channel is watching, but if they are, I know that we had talked previously within the past couple of weeks, like the past few days, in that regard. If you were interested in possibly doing a collaboration on the Bilo plantation ruins, I'd very much love to do so. Um, and although I've done a lot of research on the topic and all kinds of stuff, so I'm pretty much set as far as information goes. But there's nothing quite like, um, you know, and although I'm a Florida native and I've lived there for most of my life, I've lived there for most of my life in Florida. Um, for quite a bit of my life, I lived there for most of my life. I lived in there in Florida. So I guess from one Florida native to another, there's nothing quite like um, there's nothing quite like having a another Floridian or another local at the very least, um, kind of talk about Florida history. It's and stuff. It's quite the place. But yeah, it's quite as far as I know that Jeff is shimming in here about San Marcos and St. Augustine, the fort there. It's small, easy to tour fort. Original guns on display on top deck. Well, that's pretty darn cool though. There's a wood shop set up on the lower level. Well, I'll have to make it a point to check that out then. Um, because I know that would be really cool to see and check out. So I'll have to make sure that I do that while there. Because I know being able to see the whole thing would be, or as much of it as possible, would be great to do. And being able to, kind of show off more and more Florida history, and stuff. At least for me, I always find that pretty exciting and all that. To be able to kind of show off Florida's vast history because you're not always able to. I mean, a lot of people kind of overlook Florida history, not necessarily because they don't like Florida, but just because you wouldn't think that Florida has a lot of history. Because when you think of American history, you don't necessarily think of Florida. You probably think of Massachusetts or maybe the 13 colonies or whatever and stuff. And you probably think of other things, but you don't think necessarily. Well, Florida's not the first thing you think of. Is what I'm trying to say. Florida's not something that you. Well, Florida's not the first thing you think of. It's probably toward the bottom of the list. That's kind of what I've always found interesting is that people tend to kind of overlook Florida history, um, for that reason because they don't necessarily suspect, or they don't suspect Florida as being a, uh, as being a, um, place where there's a lot of history. Um, that's kind of what kind of gets me, not necessarily frustrated though or upset, but it's kind of one of those things where it kind of gets me to think like, well, if you had looked into Florida history, I mean, you'd see all kinds of things because you have Native American history, you have the Spanish history, British history, and just regular old history, and in some cases French history, Revolutionary War history, Civil War history. You have a pretty vast history, just in general. But it's kind of what I find interesting, just in general, Florida history in general. Um, and I kind of find that pretty interesting, and it's very, very overlooked. Um, but anywho, to kind of go back to the Bilo Plantation Ruins Historic Site. Um, Now, some of you all are probably wondering, as the to the pronunciation and the spelling. The spelling of the Bilo plantation, Bilo it's spelled Bulow, which gets one to think, do I pronounce that as Bolo? But I was actually corrected a number of weeks ago by the Kings Road YouTube channel. Thankfully, they were gracious enough as to kind of help me out with the proper pronunciation of it, and they were kind enough to help me out with the pronunciation of it, and they corrected me and said it's pronounced the Bilo plantation ruins. But anyways, the Bilo plantation ruins are located in Flagler Beach, Florida area on the East Coast, just north of Daytona. Um, and it's in a state park. So be prepared. It's in a state park. If you decide to go check it out, by all means. This is one of the topics that I've been planning on doing for a while now in regards to Florida history. So a little bit of research and planning has gone into this. Um, you know, so mostly boiled down to what I wanted to include. So there's a lot of things that I could have mentioned, but it just boiled down to what I wanted to include in it. Um, but anyways, long before modern communities were established here in Flagler area, uh, you know, the Bilo Plantation, also known as Bilowville, uh, once stood in what is today the Bilo Plantation Ruins Historic State Park. Um, so, as mentioned earlier, it's a state park. So, for those that are not aware of that, it is. So, the Bilo Plantation and Mill was just about the largest in the east coast of Florida. Um, but, anyways, at the Bilo Plantation, you'll find the charred, weathered, mossy Coquina rock ruins at the Bilo Plantation Sugar Mill and Engine House. The Bilo Plantation grew and processed sugarcane, cotton, rice, and indigo. Um, so they did. So they had um, quite the operation there. So in 1821, Major Charles Wilhelm Bilo bought about 4,675 acres at that time across acres on a tidal creek, which will later be known as the Bilo Creek. And he did use slave labor, um, to and had about 2,200 acres of land cleared and planted some of the crops I mentioned a second ago. Unfortunately, Major Charles Wilhelm Bilo died in 1823, and his 17-year-old son, John Jacob Bilo, took over the plantation. Well, yeah. Then I guess natural to John James Arbor Abu Abuban was a guest at the plantation during the 1831 Christmas season. Um, so in 1835, the Second Seminole War had just begun when troops from the United States decided to come to Florida to enforce a treaty that would then require the Seminoles to give up their land and move west. The Seminoles responded by attacking some plantations where troops were often, uh, or where they were often stationed. Um, in in 1836, the Second Seminole War unfortunately swept away the successful Milo plantation, as well as other plantations in the area. The ruins of the former plantation, which consisted of a sugar mill, a unique spring house, several wells, and the crumbling foundations of the plantation house and slave cabins show how crazy the Florida frontier was in the early 19th century. Um, so today, a scenic walking trail leads visitors to the sugar mill ruins listed on the National Register of Historic Sites. The park has picnic facilities and an interpretive center that tells the plantation's history. The Bilo Plantation ruins also have some interpretive signs centered around the ruins. Um, so definitely go and check them out if you can. It's a pretty cool site. But anyways, I'm gonna be doing that video as well in November. Probably around the same time as November 20th. So if you all, probably 20th, 21st of November will probably be when I film that video as well. I'm gonna get some of these videos knocked out of the way, or knocked out and stuff. So you all can. I'm gonna try to upload them as soon as possible, and upload them so you all can see them and check them out. Because I know that's something that you all always love watching, is my videos. Um, but anyways, if there's any other topic that you all want to have covered here, definitely let us know. Um, willing, uh, uh, definitely willing to talk about whatever American history related topic you all want to talk about. Um, open for whatever you all have in mind. Um, so definitely let us know. Um, so if you all can let us know, definitely do so. Um, but anywho, who has um, who has uh, who has do I have any other Floridians in here? Uh, do I have any Floridians in here as well that are kind of looming about, kind of going around, that are hiding in the comments or whatever? Would love to be able to uh, include you in here too. And another topic. One video that I plan on doing at some point. This is going to be more of one of those. This is going to be a more one of those narrative or narration videos. Um, I do plan on going there possibly at some point. Um, but the history of the Tuckahoe Mansion, and also the area. There's an Indian mound there. So for those that are familiar with the Indian mounds and stuff, definitely, I'm sure you all have some information that I may not have. And it's suspected that that's an Iron or an Ayas um, uh, Indian mound. And I know there's different types of Florida Indians and stuff, or Indians in Florida. Um, as far as the specific ones, there's like a different denominations and stuff, um, and uh, different Indians there. So maybe able to have some input as to how it all is. Um, but anywho, if you have any information, definitely include it in your comments. Would love to hear more as your input, hear more input about it. Um, but if you all don't have any more questions, I'm probably gonna head out in the next couple of minutes. If you all don't have any more questions, if you do, I'm willing to stay on here as long as you all want. Um, so don't head out for my sake. If you all want to keep talking, let me know. Otherwise, um, Otherwise, I'll be quiet and I'll head on out, and I'll give my peaceful farewell, um, as they call it, my peaceful farewell. If you all have nothing else to ask, we're also in the works of doing another YouTube live video at some point within the next couple months. The topic to be determined. I know that Jeff and I are going to probably talk more about the next topic or the next list of topics that we're going to cover. I know that he will probably have some more to mention as well. Um, so I guess we can go from there. I know that Jeff is a wealth of knowledge. Um, so Jeff, mentioned in the comments the name of the canteen operation you have. I definitely want to give you all a shout out there. Um, for once you get fully operational and get everything set up, and once you get everything set up, I'd love to be able to give you a shout out as well there too. But if you don't mind mentioning it in the comments here too, I'd love to do so. Just so I can kind of give you, shine some light on you for that. So don't forget to mention it in the comments if you can. We'd love to be able to do so, and kind of mention it to everyone in that regard. So if you don't mind mentioning that, that'd be great. Um, because I know that he does a great job with making historically accurate canteens, which is always nice to have on hand, especially for those that do reenacting, or if you're just a history buff that likes to have cool things. Buying one of Jeff's uh, historically accurate canteens is always nice to have. Oh gosh, I know that Jeff had asked me a while back, as far as the design for the canteen that I had seen at Fort Christmas. If you're still on here, Jeff, I know that you had asked me when you looked at a photo that I had taken at Fort Christmas. You had asked me for the dimensions and stuff of that particular canteen that you had seen, that blue canteen. Um, I forgot to mention to you. I don't know if I told you or not, but um, they themselves at the site weren't 100% sure on the dimensions. As interesting as it sounds, even though they had it in the case, I tried asking for some measurements, but I guess they were unable to do so at that time. So hopefully next time I go there, hopefully I can get some dimensions of it. Um, and have them bring out a tape measure if they can. Um, if they can. Um, so I don't know if I told you or not though, but that's pretty much the answer that I have. Is they currently do not have the dimensions of it, but I can probably ask them to get me those dimensions at a later time. But anyways, everyone stay tuned for November, because I definitely have some great videos coming out or being made in November. Um, Two videos definitely on a new topic, potentially three. I'm hoping to be able to go to uh, St. Augustine to go see the San Marcos. That's the plan, but I know that that week's going to be pretty crammed. Um, so I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to make it, but the hope is that I will. So if you're able to keep checked in, um, or stay checked in on the Facebook group, the Our Living History Facebook group, definitely stay tuned. And I definitely have some videos that'll be coming out. So if not the group page on Facebook, stay tuned on the YouTube channel here, and subscribe to the channel if you can, so you can get updates on the new videos that I have coming out on history on those particular places that I'm going to. So definitely make sure that you do that. Um, so for those that are still on here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, just so you can kind of stay updated on all my videos and stuff. on when I upload new ones. Um, it's always the best way to do it, even though I post in the group, the Our Living History Facebook group. It's still nice to be able to, still subscribe because it gives you updates on when I post a new video, and it's kind of a better way to stay updated on all those new videos. So if you can, don't forget to subscribe and stuff. I always tell people that. Um, and Also, another topic, if you ever have the chance of going to Florida on the East Coast, there's this particular site called Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge. If you all ever have the chance of going, it's in Stuart, Florida, right by Port St. Lucie area. It's south of Vero Beach. It's a little bit south of there, like a little bit south of Vero Beach. So if you have the chance to check that out, there's definitely some great stuff um, there. Um, uh, so there's definitely some great stuff there. Um, but yeah, Jeff, it definitely is great. Um, Keep us updated on everything with how that goes. Um, but anyways, the Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge in Stuart, Florida. Um, and It's kind of somewhat close to Port St. Lucie. If you all have a chance to go there, that's another great site to go to that you all should check out. Um, it's a place that I don't want to spoil it too much, to be honest, but it's uh, it's on the East Coast. It's a little bit north of Palm Beach County. Um, and Here, let me get to the so interestingly enough, before I get too in depth with this particular site, how I found Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge is you're going to be pretty interested to hear this one. I was looking at some very, very old Florida maps that were is like kind of like dated back to like mid 1800s, and I was looking at it, and of course, as I always do, I look at all those Florida maps or just old North Carolina maps or North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, whatever, or just maps of old states, or like old maps of states and stuff, and how they used to look like and stuff. And when I was looking at this Florida map, I came across the Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge, and I was like, I saw it on there, and I said, "What the heck is that?" So I saved the map to my phone, and I looked up the Gilbert's house, uh, or Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge, and I, looked it up, and lo and behold, it was this. It was I looked it up and was like, oh, this is cool. So come to find out, it's a was a designated area as a haven for victims of shipwrecks, of like shipwrecked sailors and travelers along the barely populated Atlantic coastline of the state of Florida, way back in the day. Um, you know, so like the 1800s and stuff, and um, so it was like I think it was like 1876. I also have a video on this too, where I was able to cover this topic. That was done a number of years ago as well. Um, so you'll have to check this one out, and stuff. And kind of type it into your computer or onto YouTube and stuff, and look at it. But uh, so the later part of the 19th century, in 1876, there was an ever rising number of vessels, boats, and stuff that were cruising off the coast of the southern part of Florida. And as you can imagine, the more boats came through, the more accidents and a need for support that went well beyond lighthouses. So in June of 1874, um, our great Congress, Congress called for some of those so-called houses of refuge to be built along the coast to offer help to those that were, of course, shipwrecked or somehow lost. and 5 houses were built um, the following. Um, so about 5 houses were built following the Congressional Act, and 4 more additional houses were built 10 years later. Lacking the usual station crew of surfmen, keepers of houses of refuge were primarily responsible for providing shelter, food, and clothing to victims of shipwrecks. Um, so it's definitely quite the place, and they used it as a place for those people who got shipwrecked and all. Um, so it's definitely a great opportunity for those that were, of course, shipwrecked and all, and or a great place for them to go to and get some rest and recover, and then kind of go their way, in which they needed to be able to get back to what they were doing before. But anyways, I have a whole video on that, um, called Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge on my YouTube channel here that you're watching. So in one of my videos and stuff, so you'll have to. I think it's in a playlist. I think that I've made a playlist on it. You'll have to go into the playlist area and check it out. Um, so you can very easily see that and check, and watch it. And I have a tour of the place that you can look at and stuff. So I sure hope that you all are able to enjoy it as well. Um, so you'll probably enjoy that. Um, but do we have any more questions or anything, that anyone else has? If not, no big deal. Again, I'll quietly make my exit if you don't have any more questions or comments on any related topic to American history, um, or Florida history in general, or related to American history or Florida history. Um, Again, as mentioned before, um, we're not necessarily switching the channel up. We're not. All we're doing is adding another thing that we cover and stuff. So Florida history happens to be something that we want to kind of add to our list of things that we do. But anyways, for those that are still sticking around, I'm so glad that you were able to watch the live video here. Um, if you have any suggestions as to what topics you'd like us to cover next time or in future live videos, or any uh, pre-recorded videos, or if there's a topic that you want us to cover in a pre-recorded video or a live, please let us know in the comments. We'd love to be able to do so and cover that and share. So definitely want to be able to make sure that we make as many people happy as we can, and cover as many topics involving American history as possible. So definitely let us know in the comments. Otherwise, um, keep us in mind. Um, I'm at 153 minutes here. Um, I'm trying to. I would kind of like to be able to get a few more minutes out of it. So if I can, great. If any of you all have any questions for the next 8 minutes, I'm gonna cut it off at um I'm gonna cut it off in about 7 minutes. So probably um so probably 15. So probably at 5:15, I'll probably cut off the video at about 5:15. Yeah, William did math. um, so at about 5:15, I'll probably log off if no one has any more questions. Um, if I can, you know, hopefully last that long with the video, unless people kick me off. Um, I guess kind of as a um, final um, Uh, I guess as a final say of things, um, if you all ever have any topics that you want us to cover, we'd love to be able to do so. Um, Let me see. There's got to be one more thing that we can probably cover. Um, but as mentioned, if you all ever have any more things that you all want to have us talk about, we're more than happy to do so. Um, so what are some cool locations that you all have been to? Not just in Florida or North Carolina or South Carolina or Georgia, Alabama. It could even be in California, some history related stuff. If anyone has any stuff that they've ever experienced that's pretty cool, let us know in the comments as well. Love to hear that. Um, so who else? If you've ever heard any of that or heard or been into, if you've ever been into any of those sites, let us know. Um, has anyone ever been to the Hallstrom House, which was a pineapple plantation in Vero Beach, Florida? If you have, I'd love to hear more about it. Um, uh, has anyone ever been there? Because I know that I have that written down as one of the places I'm hoping to go to within the next couple of years. It's in Vero Beach. Um, if you all ever have the chance to go there, um, I'd love to. Or if you've ever been there before, let us know. Um, but anyways, if there's ever any sites in Florida that you've ever been to, or just in general in the U.S., America, let us know. I would love to hear about them. Uh, one of these days, I'm hoping to kind of go on a tour of America, and I know everyone sits there and says, "Oh, I'll go on a tour of America. That'd be a lot of fun," you know. Um, it's kind of one of those dreams that I have of one day doing, um, of one day going on a tour or on a long drive. I guess as kind of I guess you can call it a sabbatical, in which I could probably just drive around the U.S. for about a year. If I could just go on like a year's worth of drive, or like doing like a year long tour of the United States, I'd probably do so. But I'd have to be pretty tactical about it. Um, and just find interesting places that I want to go to. And probably just do some big zigzagging looking circle, if that makes sense. Going from, what is it? Starting off in Florida or North Carolina, kind of going up the East Coast, or whatever, the East Coast of United States, and then kind of zigzagging east and west, and kind of going, as I'm going north, and you know, and then just going up to Maine, and then down, and then kind of going kind of like a big circle and doing the upper half of the U.S. and stuff. Um, but anywho, um, I guess not to stray too far, but I've always wanted to kind of do like a whole tour of America, if that makes sense. But anyways, kind of back to Florida history. I know that doing the Kennedy Space Center was another thing that had been mentioned to me that I should do. Um, that is a uh, a plan of mine, but it's not in the works at this time. What I mean is it's in the works, but it's not something that I have planned in the near future. Um, so it's probably one of those topics in which I'm going to cover probably within the next couple of years, kind of as a long term plan. It's like I have a whole list of historic sites in Florida, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Virginia, and just all over. a whole bunch of sites all over the place that I have. Um, I have a whole list of places that I want to go to. So it's kind of one of those things to where it's like I sit there and try to prioritize, um, you know, where I want to go, and I have a whole list of how I want to do it. So, and I'm starting to slowly kind of knock it out of the way. So yeah, I'll get there one way or another though. So, um, but if you all have uh some places that you want me to check out, just let me know, message me. But anyways, I haven't had any questions or comments in a little bit, so I'm gonna probably hang up the towel and take that as a hint as to log off. But anyways, thanks for those that partook. Thank you, Jeff, for partaking in the video for the time that you had with us. It's always a pleasure to have you. Um, let's definitely sit and talk at some point about uh, future live videos. And whoever else wants to partake in a live video, please let us know. We'd love to have you, or love to talk about having you. But anyways, hope you all have a great rest of the day, and talk to you all later. Bye.